This episode is brought to you by Kia's first 3-row all-electric SUV, the Kia EV9, with available all-wheel drive and seating for up to 7 adults, with a 0 to 60 speed that thrills you 1 minute, and available reclining lounge seats that unwind you the next. Visit kia.com/EV9 to learn more. Ask your Kia dealer for availability. No system, no matter how advanced, can compensate for all driver error and or driving conditions. Always drive safely.
I'm Mo Rocca, and I'm excited to announce Season 4 of my podcast, Mobituaries. I've got a whole new bunch of stories to share with you about the most fascinating people and things who are no longer with us. From famous figures who died on the very same day, to the things I wish would die, like buffets. All that and much more. Listen to Mobituaries with Mo Rocca wherever you get your podcasts.
This is a Rogue Media Network podcast.
Boobies. Boobies. Hi.
Hello and welcome to
Boobies.
Boobies. That's right. We're your hosts. I'm Caitlin.
And I'm Joshua.
And today we're here to talk to you about a super duper fun movie.
Yeah.
Yay.
So fun. It's like
Cult
one of the
classic.
most joyous movies I've ever seen in my life.
Is it a cult classic? Can it become
Probably
one?
at this point.
Yeah.
It's been referenced in other films like Scream's 2022 Scream.
Yeah.
2022. Did I say that right? Yeah. 2022. Yeah. So, I mean, it's definitely made an impact in terms of like, I see
the horror.
the memes and like, you know,
Yeah.
to see people reference it.
My favorite one was
talk
that
about
Barbie
it.
one that
Oh,
we
yeah.
posted on our story.
Yeah.
With the Barbie drive-in. The little
There's so many.
convertible.
And there's so many like moments in the film as well that can be taken out and like, you know, turned into whatever, put with whatever type of like caption, and it just makes sense and it's funny
Yeah.
for us who have a darker sense of humor.
Yes.
Yes. And what film are we talking about, you guys? If you haven't read the title of our podcast episode, it is Hereditary.
Hereditary 2018.
Yes.
Directed by Mr. Ari Aster.
Ari Aster, written by him as well. And it is starring Toni Collette, Alex Wolff, Millie Shapiro, Ann Dowd, Gabriel Byrne. The list goes on. And we're basically following the aftermath of the death of a patriarch of a family. Matriarch, my bad, because she's a woman.
Yeah.
And kind of what happens, you know, after your estranged mother comes back into your life and dies and leaves you with a mess of things to have to deal with.
Yeah. And then also keeps coming back into your life after her death.
It's true. Yeah. It doesn't stop.
Yeah.
That's kind of in
Death
multiple
was not
ways.
the end.
Multiple ways. Spiritual form and physical form.
Yes.
That's haunting. Poor Annie. Well, do we want to just dive right in? Oh, and I guess we should mention this is also a I was gonna say fan request. Sorry,
It is
it's fan request, right?
Fan listener request.
Fan listener. It's a listener request from Robert Jackson. So thank you for shouting out and listening to our podcast and wanting us
And
to
for being
review
the
this
best.
movie. Yes, and for
Yay,
being the best.
we love Robbie.
We love Robbie. We do.
Robbie forever.
Shout out to Robbie.
Hashtag.
Okay, that's enough.
No.
I
need at least 2 more hours
of
loving Robbie.
That's pretty much it. And then the following 15 minutes will be dedicated to the movie.
Yes, exactly like how the last 15 minutes of this movie is when it just shit hits the fan.
It really does, because it's a what we'd like to call a slow burn, but
Yeah.
not like a slow burn, boring burn, like just like a really intense, like you're watching this shit fire just like grow and grow and grow until it just like combusts. And
Exactly.
it just takes over, and then it's just like your head is then left like in a dizzy.
I remember. So did you see this film in theaters?
I never got to see it in theater. No. Mm-mm.
I saw it in theaters like one of the opening weekends. I went with my friend Ryan and Adrian, and we all just were like, we kind of just sat there, I think, until like the lights came back up and stuff in the theater afterwards.
Yeah, I believe
and
you.
then we were just kind of like,
you can't even talk.
What the fuck? It's a little
dark. It's a little heavy. Even from the get-go, like from the jump, it's heavy themes.
Yeah,
very
and dealing with death and
trauma, family, and I think in any time, because family is like, we all have family. Everybody, whether you're close or not, and that could be even the more of like triggering thing is like if you're probably not close or you have some type of trauma between you and your family. Like everybody can relate to this story, and everybody can feel like the uncomfortable, like
everyone's family worships demons and devils.
That's how it goes.
And
Christianity
decapitates themselves.
I'm just kidding. But yeah, like you can really feel where this movie tugs at people's heartstrings, because it's something that we either have all been through or know someone, or not like the demon possession, but like just going through shit with your family. That's a lot. And like a lot of the times you watch movies and you watch film and cinema to escape like the trauma of life and like the heaviness, and maybe you want to forget it. And so this is really something that's like, if you're maybe not having the best moment in life right now with your family, don't watch this movie. It'll be triggering. It'll just probably make you depressed.
Yeah, it's really dark.
Or honestly, maybe your family's not as bad. This is gonna show you,
it'll
like,
make you feel really good.
Yeah,
like wow,
it could be this bad.
At least my grandmother's not in a cult.
Literally fucking us all over for riches that she can't even. She's dead. Yeah. What?
From beyond the grave.
Literally.
Yeah.
Anyways, yeah. Let's jump right in. Let's get into it. Immediately as the movie opens, we get a black screen and we have an obituary for Grandma.
Ellen Lee.
Ellen Lee, yes.
Age 78.
Was pretty up there. I mean, I guess, yeah, that's pretty up there, 78. That's, oh, Lord.
I feel like that's a long life. When I think about it, and the fact that I'm almost 30, and then I'm like, oh my God, that's only 40 years away from me.
That's why I'm like,
it starts. It started having a mental like kind of panic attack as I read her age, and I was like, "Oh my God, I'm almost 40." But I'm not almost 40. I still got.
We're not. We're still 10 years away. But those moments hit me really late at night when I'm laying there, and I'm like, "What? I'm gonna die one day." I can't. Like, I haven't accepted. I know.
I think I've mentioned this before, but mine always happens when I'm in a theater, in a movie theater. Okay. For some reason, every time. Any movie. I could be watching like a Disney film, and all of a sudden there's just this like realization that washes over me that I'm gonna die someday.
That's really like threatening, obviously, right? Because we don't want to die, but like that's crazy.
It freaks me out.
It really does. Because then like I guess it's the fear of the unknown, right? Because then there's nothing after. But for me also too, it's like, man, like I want to keep hanging out with my friends. I want to keep as I'm like 98, like decrepit, can't even move. But like I want to keep enjoying the things that I like to do. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like I don't know. Even if there is more, even if there is right,
bingo.
Even if there is more, what if it's different? You know what I mean? Yeah. Good or bad, I don't know, but we'll see. But anyways, Miss Ellen was 78, and I'm not going to say lived a good life, but she lived a life. That's for sure. She is survived by her daughter and her 2 grandchildren and her son-in-law, who is all Annie's family. We're going to be following them and getting to know them real soon. Peter, Charlie, she is, what's the preceded in death, right? Or when people die before you, I don't know. You die after them. Her husband is dead, and her other son is, and Annie's brother is dead, which we get more on that later on. But yeah, it's pretty much your standard obituary, like, and funeral services will be at so-and-so and whatever. So, pretty cool. We then open up into a room, and this is when we kind of get the miniatures. What are their miniature? They're all miniature. I call them buildings. Miniatures. Yeah, because they're not like just houses.
The music there.
Yeah,
that
that's
builds.
True.
I love after the eulogy or obituary thing, the music, how it builds, and then it just goes to like stark silence with a shot of the treehouse. This movie has so much symbolism and foreshadowing just with shots of things.
It really
like
does.
we get the shot of the treehouse, we start with the treehouse, we end with the treehouse, and then whenever we pass on the way to the party, like we pass the telephone pole and it pans in on it.
With
and
the
at
symbol on
first, before you've even watched the film, you're like, that's a weird shot. Why would we just look at this telephone pole? But then after watching it, you're like, oh, it's telling us it's telling us what's exactly going to happen.
I mean, even as soon as here in a little bit with the funeral and the NUTS, the nuts. And that chocolate better not have nuts. We don't have the EpiPen.
Oh, yeah.
Like we already have that moment of like, okay, we know like Charlie can't be eating nuts. But yeah, the music is done by Colin Stetson.
He did a great job.
He did the whole thing. He is best known actually. I believe he's with Arcade Fire, or he does stuff with Arcade Fire and Bon Iver and like
Bon
a bunch
Iver.
of Bon Iver. Is that how you say it?
I've always said Bon Iver.
Oh, I don't even know. I know I've heard the name before and seen it like in stuff and awards and stuff, but I don't even know if I've heard a song by that artist.
Oh, you have
probably on the radio.
Yeah, I don't know about on the radio, but I feel
Somewhere.
like in films and stuff.
Okay. But yeah, pretty good on the music, because the whole movie kind of also, I would say, as long as visually, sonically, it's just like it relies a lot. Well, I don't want to say relies, but they work so well together, the visuals and then that music the entire time, because it's really like heavy and I don't even know what word, not moody, but like it's just
I would say moody,
brooding, right? It just feels like bad stuff is about to happen, like at all times.
It really works incredibly well with the film. It does a phenomenal job of cueing everything, and it never distracts at any point.
Just adds to
in
it.
fact, most of the time I didn't notice the music in the film. Like it just did such a good job. It blended seamlessly with all of the visuals, and it did such a great job. I really enjoyed it.
And then after we get like these really nice shots and like cool visuals kind of setting up, giving some foreshadowing, we get this really awesome scene where it's like you're panning in on this miniature scale of the house that they're in, and it zooms into Peter's room, and we have Dad walking in and waking up Peter, because
that's such a cool shot. I remember seeing that in the theaters and just being like, whoa, that was fucking cool. I loved it.
Very seamless.
Yeah, because I was just like, how in the world did they do that? It was a miniature and now it's real life.
Regular,
what? It blew my mind. I was just like, this is not anything I've ever seen before. Yeah. It was so cool.
It was pretty cool. Visually, it's a good way to kick off the movie, I'd say, when you start introducing characters anyways, you know?
Yeah.
When we have Dad, Steven, right? It's Steven. Dad, who's coming in to wake up Peter because we have to go to Grandma's funeral.
Yeah.
You know? And it's
I love how, sorry. I love how both of the kids are still asleep, yet the parents are fully dressed and like in the car.
I feel like that's just real life, isn't it?
But I feel like my parents would have woken me up like
hours
way
ago
beforehand and been like, get your ass ready right now. Like you got this many minutes to be in the car and we're going kind of thing.
I was thinking that too, especially because
wait until I'm in the car to then wake them up, because then regardless, like
it feels that they had probably already been trying to get them up, but they were just being disobedient. Yeah, and we're just like not waking up.
Yeah.
But also this family is very disassociative and doesn't like to really, like Annie being in the car already. Like she obviously, I guess, didn't have the bandwidth to go and be like, get ready already. I don't know. Or maybe she already did. But anyways, they are Annie's in the car. Dad is asking where Charlie is because he couldn't find her in her bedroom. And so he goes outside and she's asleep in the treehouse that we had seen from the beginning shot.
With no blanket or anything. She's just curled up there and
her little hoodie.
Her
orange
hoodie.
That one she wore all the time.
It reminds me of my Carhartt hoodie. The one that I used to wear all the time. That's like a 4X. It's like
it's comfy.
It's so comfy.
It's a comforter.
Yeah. It's like a Snuggie.
Yeah.
or what is that thing
A
called?
snuggie, huggies, snuggies.
The huggle.
No, the huggle. Yeah,
That you
the huggle.
have.
That's I have the off-brand one.
Yeah,
The huggle.
it reminds me of that. But yeah, she's up there in the treehouse, and we get her down, and then we're basically at the funeral, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
We just transfer over there
To
and
mom.
Mom's reading, a little speech and stuff, and you can tell it's really does a great job of setting the scene of her relationship with her mom, and her relationship, like how little she knew of her mother,
Mm-hmm.
and yet how she's having to play this role of the daughter, and who is like, loving and stuff at
Mm-hmm.
her mom's funeral, when in reality she doesn't really like care. I mean, she does care, but she's not like, she asks later on, should I be sadder?
Yeah.
And stuff.
It's
and,
almost like a weight is lifted off of her at the same time.
yeah.
And it's like she mentions later when she's talking to those people in the group, and she's like, what did she say? It wasn't that big of a blow, you know what I mean? Just because of like their relationship already was super strained.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I feel, especially, I guess, if you're in estranged and have such a tumultuous relationship with your mom, that's got to take a lot out of you too, to just be up there and be like, hey, thanks for coming, even though I didn't like this bitch.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She's dead. Good riddance.
Yeah.
But yeah. And then she's up there and she's explaining, like, it's so nice to see so many strange faces. And then she was like, my mom would be a little suspicious and stuff like that. And so kind of already from the get, we're getting that, there's people that were in her mom's life that she has no idea about.
Mm-hmm.
And apparently quite a few people.
Yeah.
Who later come into play. But at the moment, we're just...
They're strangers.
To
Annie,
to everyone. Yeah.
And she's just like, who the fuck are all these people?
Then they're watching Charlie all weirdly.
Yeah.
Through the, what is it when you go view the body?
In the like open casket visitation kind of situation.
And they're all having their little procession past the casket, and Charlie's sitting there looking at her, and there's this creepy man behind her just like grinning at her.
He has the most eerie smile ever.
He does.
Like very creep factor.
Yeah.
Times
I
10.
would shit a brick if somebody smiled at me like that.
And
Charlie's just like, okay.
Yeah. Charlie's just like, weird dude. And eating chocolate. And this is when we get her noticing that some woman is walking up to grandma and puts some like oil or something on her lips, or some type of, I don't know what it was.
I'm assuming it was some sort of oil,
right?
Or like incense kind of thing.
Definitely doing something weird with the body. Yeah, because
like, don't touch the body. Nope. That's like protocol.
Like, don't just for real. Oh,
unless
let me put
you're
some
like,
lipstick on her.
Yeah, she's looking a little. She's looking a little pale.
Let me freshen her up. But yeah, we end up have Charlie noticing that, which she does think is a little bit odd, and at the same time she's eating a chocolate bar.
I did think
what
when grandma was in there, her neck was like really smushed down.
Yeah.
And I was like, I hope to God, I mean, first off, I want to be cremated. I'm pretty sure. But I hope to God, if I'm like being put in a casket, somebody at least like puts my chin up so I don't have a double chin.
Ooh, yeah, I see what you mean. Yeah.
I was looking at grandma and I was like, damn, they kind of did grandma dirty.
Granny in this film, and even in the pictures later on, I don't know what it is about this granny, but it gives like someone who's like not that old, but in like old prosthetics.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Because she looked like a spring chicken. I don't know what it like.
Her frame was very young,
right?
In appearance.
Wasn't that what it was? I don't know. Something looked off about her to me, other than her being crazy and Nicole.
She stood very upright.
Yeah.
Maybe she needed more hunch.
I don't know. For being 78, I don't know. I don't know. But anyways, she just was a little bit weird to me. But I guess that works because,
I think, she's meant to be weird.
It adds to it. Yeah, the creep factor. And so we have them talking to Charlie about, the nuts kind of shoving her way. It's really something that's like mentioned, and like we're shoveling each other through the doors, where like it's slightly mentioned, but it's enough for us to know like, okay, this is probably important. It'll come into play later.
Yeah, because it gets mentioned twice back to back. Someone, Steven, comes up and is like, does that have nuts?
Yeah.
And then mom comes up and is like, does that have nuts? Because we don't have the EpiPen. And then so you kind of, you're like, okay, I'm supposed to remember that.
And
Homegirl doesn't do good with nuts.
No, and when yeah, Uh, she knows she's not supposed to have nuts. So later on, I just don't understand why the fuck
She ate that chocolate cake because there were clearly nuts in it.
you could see them,
You could see them.
you can taste them,
Yeah.
you can crunch them and know that that's a nut.
Yeah.
Anyways, I'm sorry.
Whenever they were cutting the cake, I was like, this cake clearly has nuts in it.
Yeah.
I was like, there's nuts like all.
But-
it was like whole walnuts.
Yes.
And the girl was sitting there crunching the walnuts
With the knife,
earlier.
yeah.
Yeah, making a giant mess, by the way.
Yeah.
I
And who
was
does
like-
that at a party?
Yeah.
That was one of
Baking a cake.
Robert's big comments. It's just like,
Who
who's
cuts
baking a
nuts
cake?
and baking
who,
cakes?
At like a house party. And
Yeah.
they're teenagers at that. Like they're not even adults. Like maybe I could see that like a 30-year-old like house party. Like
Yeah.
but not some teenagers.
Hosting a little party. Yeah,
Yeah.
no, you're just eating chips out of the bag and
Literally. Not even
spilling
that.
the
I feel like not
crunches.
even that. So after the funeral, we're getting home, and I love how, why is it that like I feel like we've been living in this house forever, but Dad still has to be like, everybody take off your shoes. Like I don't know, but anyways,
Yeah.
I don't know why.
maybe
that
it's a
stuck
new
with
rule
me.
he's trying to enforce.
Maybe because Charlie's like already
He's like, I'm
halfway
sick
up
of
the
cleaning
stairs.
up your dirt.
And he's like, take off your shoes. So, and then that's when we have Mom being like, should I be feeling sadder? Like, what should I be feeling? And then Steven is just like, you should be feeling whatever you're gonna feel. It'll come. Like,
Eventually.
yeah. Basically, just kind of like whatever you feel is valid, and like just kind of write it out.
Yeah.
And then that's when we have her, Mom starts talking to Charlie because it's nighttime, right? Like getting ready before bed kind of situation.
Yeah, I think Dad checks in on Peter, and then Mom is talking with Charlie, and Charlie's basically saying like, well, who's going to take care of me now? Like, because Mom was like, Grandma, like you were Grandma's favorite.
Yeah.
Right. And we find out later why.
Yeah.
But
Grandma and Charlie had a really close bond and connection, all because of Granny, because she was basically grooming a child for possession. But yes, yeah. And then we have Mom, Annie, noticing satani, right? Satani on the wall. Like we see that there's this word that's obviously not in English. It looks like Satan, but with a Y at the end of it. And it's like carved over her bed. And I don't know why Mom, Annie, didn't also already think like, because she kind of looks at it and it's just kind of like, oh, whatever. And
yeah,
I'm like, that's fucking weird.
Yeah, I would have been like, no.
So I would have been like, hey, Charlie, when did you scratch that into the wall? And
Yeah.
Charlie would have been like, that wasn't me.
Why did you scratch into the wall in general? I would be mad.
True that. Yeah,
Like,
that
you
was
just
some pretty looking wallpaper.
Ruined a wall.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then we also get at this point that like, Grandma loved you so much that whenever it was your baby, she would try to feed you instead and wouldn't let me feed you, which is like
gross,
disgusting.
Because we're talking about breastfeeding. We're not just talking about like a milk and bottle.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then that's whenever Charlie also was like, she mentions Grandma wanted me to be a boy.
Mm-hmm.
And Annie has to be like, no, sweetie. Like, Grandma loved you. Like, Grandma adored you, basically.
Grandma did want her to be a boy.
She did. She really did. Grandma was like, fuck, changing plans.
Yep.
And what if she could have gone about it a whole different way, but she chose a pretty gnarly way to do it. I guess that's a part of this ritual, though. I don't know. I was like, she could have just coerced Charlie to transition.
Yeah. That's true.
But
from what I gather, like, yeah, because Charlie was already had the spirit of Payman. And
I've heard them say it like 3 different ways on YouTube, but I'm gonna go with Payman.
I think they were saying Payman in the movie.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna go with what they said in the movie.
Go off of it.
I think.
Mm-hmm.
But basically Charlie is already the spirit of Payman, and she just needed to be a male body.
Yeah.
right?
That
So
needed to be
because
corrected. Yeah, basically, and this was why kind of grandma came back into Annie's life because she needed the child
she
to
needed,
be, and she needed a vessel.
yeah,
And
needed
so
Peter.
yeah, and it couldn't have been Peter because at that point, mom and keep Annie and what's the grandma's name? Ellen.
Ellen.
Granny Lee. We'll just say Lee. Granny Lee, they were estranged, so Granny Lee couldn't, I feel like, imbue or do whatever she needed to do when the baby was a baby to get the spirit in there or whatever. So that's why from the get go, Charlie was already like had it in her, and then they just had to do the whole thing to like correct the body, I guess, situation.
Yeah.
And they were like, well, we got a brother, we'll just use the brother.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Close familial tie.
Yeah.
Kind of thing.
Because Payman is associated, like if you read into like the demonology and all that, with blue light and with clicking sounds, and that's why from the get go she was already making the tongue popping sounds.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's we have mom. I think she's back in her like project room, craft room, studio. Yeah, there we go. And she's working on her miniature scaled buildings and stuff, and that's whenever doesn't Steven come in, he's just like checking on her and making sure she's doing good.
Yeah, I think so.
Kind of doing what a husband should do. And then that's whenever it's cut to the next day and we have Charlie at school.
First we
right?
have mom going through a box of
that's right,
Ellen's things.
Yeah.
And kind of seeing a picture book and stuff, or what's it called, a photo album. And she doesn't really flip through the photo album too much. She kind of stops
like first page,
early.
second page,
yeah. But then all of a sudden, as she's going to leave the room, she turns off the light and sees grandma standing in the corner, just smiling at her like a weirdo, just like the weird guy at the funeral.
Yeah.
So we see grandma standing there, smiling, and then whenever she turns on the light, she's gone. But that was a really eerie scene.
Really freaks out Annie.
Yeah.
And then right before that too, as she was flipping through one of those spiritualism books or something right there, she reads a postcard, and it's a apology letter from her mom.
Yeah.
Remember? And it was basically being like, dear Annie, sorry I couldn't tell you, the things that I wish I could have told you, and, don't hate me. I love you. When you'll see like what we'll get for our sacrifice, basically. It's very eerie note already.
Yeah.
For
very cryptic.
Very cryptic, yeah. Definitely an underlying message underneath there. And then, yeah, so she's freaked out. Annie's freaked out about that. And I guess, is that the end of the night? And then we have Charlie at school?
Yes.
The next day? Yeah. And that's whenever we have her not paying attention to her quiz that she's supposed to be taking. And she's fidgeting with, like, I guess she takes after mom, and she makes, like, miniature things. But her things are, like, very Sid from Toy Story.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they're like amalgamations of, like, a lot of different parts of different things.
Yeah. They're, like, just kind of like little monsters of toys.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very much so.
Just a bunch of random things shoved together to make humanoid figures and stuff. And she's fidgeting with the head, trying to figure out a good head for this thing, right? Because it looks like a body.
Yeah.
And trying to figure out the head. When all of a sudden,
the bird hits the window.
The bird flies right into the window.
And all the kids are like, oh my God, what was that?
Yeah.
As I would be. And then that's whenever we have them, it transitions to, I think, Peter now in class, and he's looking at some girl's butt. And he's, he's a high school teenage boy. He's in class daydreaming, thinking about the girl. And the teacher's always like, Peter, do you want to chime in with whatever? When his friend is like texting him about getting high in between classes or something. But then we cut back to Charlie, who's now outside. And she
it had panned in on some scissors earlier.
Yeah, it did.
Kind of hinting at us that she was going to grab them.
And so she gets the scissors and she cuts off the bird's head. And then just like, I love how she like quickly
just shoves it in her pocket.
Yeah, because I mean, homegirl knows like this is creepy as fuck. I hope nobody sees me doing this.
Yeah.
But
just like that birdie that we found at Cultivate.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, it's pretty sad. And then we have her looking across the street, and she sees another weirdo person like at the funeral, just looking at her and smiling.
Yep.
And giving her and waving at her, like the little toodaloo wave, not even like a wave. It's like just fingers flicking in the air.
Yeah.
And
Hello.
Charlie is pretty, like, her face is like visibly like, this is weird. But Charlie is also like at times kind of like social cues, I feel like, are not there.
Yeah.
So I think she's just like, okay, whatever. She's like, okay,
This is
weirdo.
weird.
Hi. Yeah. I think she was more like thinking like, damn, that person just saw me cut the head off this bird.
Yeah.
I hope they don't say anything. But yeah, she's being watched, and this is whenever we have we cut back with Annie at home, and she's walking through the house, I think because the doorbell or something. She's gonna go grab something or get the door, Steven's home, but that's when she notices that her mom's bedroom door is open.
Yeah. Grandma's door has been left open, and she closes it quickly after kind of looking in there for a second, and then goes downstairs and finds Steven, and she was like, hey, did you go into my mom's room? And Steven was like, no, that maybe,
One of the
one of the kids or something.
Trying to rationalize like why the door could be open.
Yeah.
And also, though, there was that triangle on the floor, though, right?
Yeah, I think so.
I guess that triangle was there before, because I guess Annie wasn't asking questions about like why there was like a triangle next to the bed frame. I don't know. But yeah, it was pretty weird. And then later on, I guess we figure out why doors are open and shit, because people have been in their house
doing all sorts of shit.
Yeah. Apparently, I'll have to rewatch it, or maybe find some YouTube video. We'll have to look it up. Robbie was telling me that like if you pay attention more to the film, or like apparently you can see cult members like in the background in the house at certain points.
Oh.
Like they were in the house when they were in the house
The whole time.
Yeah.
Ew.
Pretty
I
fucking
hate that.
scary. Yeah.
That's so scary. Ew. But then basically after that, Dad gets a phone call from the funeral cemetery place, and Peter's like, here you go, Dad. And we can basically gather from that conversation that Grandma's grave has been desecrated.
Yeah.
That
it's been dug up.
Yeah. I mean, they don't say that, but they say desecrated. And so you're like,
it's been vandalized or something.
Yeah, but something bad has happened. But you can assume typically desecrated means it's been dug up. So
I guess that would be more exhumed, but like I don't feel like the verb that's like exhumed is like people who use like court and like doctors and like that kind of stuff. Yeah.
Like when you need to exhume a body to
prove something,
do another autopsy or something on it. Yeah. This has been vandalized, like you said. And yeah, so we get that. And then basically Mom is going to grief counseling next, right? But she says she's going to the theater, movies.
Which is just kind of like, homegirl, why can't you just call it what it is? Because that later on comes to bite her in the ass.
Of doubt.
Yeah. This is what happens when you're not truthful. Because either way, even though it was kind of like a baby lie, it was still a lie. But she has her reasons. I get it though, because she's kind of has a hard time facing her own emotions and feelings and confronting like her truth, which is funny when she calls out everyone else who's saying like nobody else can take accountability.
Yeah, and it was like homegirl,
you can't take accountability, especially later on when she was like talking about what she did to the kids, and she was like, but I was asleep. I'm like, homegirl, you still did it.
You
like,
still tried to light them on fire.
She was like, but I was
along
asleep.
with yourself.
Forgive me. I'm like, yeah, because it happened. Like,
yeah,
that's traumatizing.
I would be rightly freaked out as well if I were Peter.
Yeah, it's an unfortunate lesson for Annie, but yeah, she is at grief therapy, goes to this like like the AA, like the circle, everybody's like, hey, I'm Peter and I'm this and that, and
hi Annie.
Yeah, and at first she doesn't want to share, but then we get her sharing, and this is
she's
when we
kind of got just word vomit coming out of her mouth. She's like all of a sudden just offloading all of the emotions she's had pent up. Yeah, it was like they opened a little floodgate, and she's just like, blah, blah,
it's like that
blah,
moment that you ask someone like, hey, how have you been, and you're expecting they're like, oh, I've been good, I'm fine, but then they like tell you like, oh yeah, like my grandma died, it's been 3 years, she also touched me when I was 2, and then like I killed my grandfather. Like, it's basically like what was happening here. Granny did not have an easy life because Granny was a cultist and everything's her fault. But anyways, we learned that Annie's dad was a schizophrenic and he ended up, or not schizophrenic, sorry, he got depression and ended up starving himself.
Psychotic depression.
Psychotic, yeah,
is what they called it.
and ended up starving himself to death. And then her brother was apparently schizophrenic, quote unquote, because I don't think he was. And then he killed himself and wrote a suicide note blaming the mom, being like, I am killing myself because you tried to put people inside me, which we find out later
is exactly what she was trying to do.
Yeah.
So it's not that he wasn't schizophrenic. People just
literally
thought he was because he was spouting crazy nonsense, possessed, but it was in actuality what was happening.
Yeah. And it was also probably like what, the 50s, 60s? I don't know how old the mom is, Annie, but yeah, it was back in the day. So, you know.
Yeah, I'd probably say the 70s.
70s, right? Yeah. And so at this point, we have this all going on. She's offloading on everybody. And I guess it's kind of therapeutic for her. We find out that she had to come to therapy before, but we never find out why, right? She just mentions that like it was helpful then, so I guess it'll work for now. I don't know. But yeah, all of that's going on. And then that's whenever we have Peter at home. It cuts back to home and Peter's smoking in his room, which also I don't understand how people smoke pot in their parents' house, like in the bed. I just feel like you can smell that.
Yeah.
But anyways, even though he's just trying to blow it out the window, but this is where we get him blowing the smoke out the window. And we also get a mention of there being a house party the next night.
Yeah, he gets a little text about a party. So they set it up that's coming in.
And then
they do a good job of like really not having any loose ends.
Yeah. Everything's thought of before.
Yeah.
Which also is like, how thought out was it? It's all been planned out.
Mm-hmm.
It's one of the cult leader's son, and just like happened to befriend Peter like 3 years before.
Made sure to put.
Yeah, like all this work has been going into this, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But we have him blowing the pot smoke out of the window, and I like it because you can tell it's cold, and so when he's blowing it out, you can see obviously like the smoke and stuff. But we then see from our angle of the view, there's someone else standing watching the house blowing, like breathing. You can see there. Did you notice that?
No.
Yeah. Whenever he blows smoke out the window, it lingers there because then you see from your angle someone's blowing smoke out this way watching.
Creepy.
Mm-hmm.
I'll have to go back and rewatch
that.
Yeah. Will I?
No. It's really dark.
I like to imagine that I would.
It's like for 5 seconds, but yeah.
Yeah, I was probably writing a note.
Yeah. And so then that's whenever we see Charlie with her fucking bird head, and she's now attached it to the little body of the little toy she was making earlier.
Yeah, she found the perfect head for it.
And this is when we also get our first visual of this like ring of blue light that like comes into, I don't know how to describe it. It's not a ring. Sometimes it's also just like a flash or just like a line of light. I don't know. How would you describe it? Do you remember? Do you remember back in the day, computers, the little visualizer when you would play music and it'd have like all these like.
Yeah.
It gives that.
Yeah.
I don't know if that makes any sense to anybody out there, but that's what it gives.
Just how it changes different shapes and morphs and it's almost like.
Or like when you close your eyes and you press on your eyes and it's dark and you see all those colored lights. Is that just me?
No. Yeah. And it's just like basically this circle of light that comes and then it closes in on itself. And so like it'll like travel down the hallway as it does later on in the film or around the room. And it's this like circle that's kind of enveloping it. And then it goes down into this like tiny blob and disappears on itself. Yeah. And it just makes all these weird shapes. And it's this like very prominent character.
Yeah,
of
it is
sorts.
a character itself, basically. And because even Charlie's like, well, that was strange, very peculiar, because it then leads her to look out the window and then kind of go outside. And she's going outside, and that's whenever we have Peter going in to talk to Annie, in her studio, and he's like, hey mom, can I borrow the car please? I want to go to this like barbecue thing that some students are throwing. And she's like, is there going to be drinking? And already, like, I mean, he's a teenager, so he kind of has an attitude, a good lip on him, to BH.
Yeah.
Because if I would have said something like that, my mom would have been like, nah, you definitely ain't going out. But because he's just a smart ass.
Yeah. He's like, I won't be drinking. And she's like, I'm not asking you, like,
because she's like, is there going to be alcohol there? And he's like, well, we couldn't even get it if we wanted it. And she's like, well, that's a crock of shit. Because, like, obviously, that's a crock of shit. Like, I'm asking you if you're going to be drinking. But anyways, and he's just like, well, I said no.
I just told you.
Yeah. But anyways, yeah, she's like, well, have you asked your sister if she wants to go? He's like, no. So they're gonna ask Charlie. So now they're looking for Charlie, but Charlie's outside and she's walking towards their backyardish area. It's like, looks like they live next to open field. And she sees grandma's like silhouette, like her body, like not facing her, and she's like got a fire going
surrounded by fire. Yeah.
Mhm.
Got like this circle, like a ring of fire almost in front of her. Super weird. And I would have like freaked the fuck out and been like, Mom, grandma's over there.
Yeah.
Or something.
With flames.
Yeah.
Because she's supposed to be dead. But mom, Annie comes up and she's like freaking out. 'Cause she's like, what the hell are you doing out here, by yourself, barefoot as well.
In the cold.
And the whole time, this whole movie, it's cold. You guys, it's cold. If you don't forget it, it's cold.
It's cold.
Yeah.
Yes.
And even later on, we get mentioned with whenever she wants to go outside and sleep. And dad's like, it's freezing outside. But yeah,
when the windows open during the seance.
Yeah. It's true. And so we have Charlie coming in, and that's whenever Annie's like, you know what, hey, you're gonna go to this party. Charlie's like, why? Who's there? She don't know nobody there. But mom is like, you know what, you're a kid, you need to go have fun, hang out with kids your own age, just go. And so they end up going together, and that's whenever I believe we have that whole scene that we talked about earlier when they're driving on their way there, and we pass the telephone pole.
Yep.
And you get a long shot of it, and it also has a marking on it that we've been seeing this symbol on a necklace that Annie was wearing, on the book that belonged to her mother, and I believe a couple other different shots where we've noticed this mark. So it means something. And
on a side note,
yeah,
I once tried to play a drinking game to this movie with my friends Kenny and Sarah. Yeah. And we had to stop quickly because we realized you would die if you tried this drinking game.
Like shots?
Yeah. Because it was like
so many
anytime that symbol appears.
Yeah.
So anytime that symbol appears, anytime the word like mother, daughter, or sister is mentioned, anytime like, you'd have to pause the movie every like 30 seconds. Appears, I think,
and take a shot.
Stuff. Yeah. Yeah. It was just like anytime anything that happens like shit ton of times throughout the film. Anytime someone dies.
I mean, I could see that being okay with like sipping, like on
sipping on one, but
something. Yeah.
If you're taking shots,
you
would be dead.
No.
Yeah. It was.
This movie is 2 hours.
We had to
like
then go switch to. I think we switched to Friday the 13th or Halloween or something. It was one of the classics, and it was like anytime someone gets stabbed, a little bit easier. Yeah. And not as, because then you also had to like really pay attention to be like, oh, mother was mentioned.
Yeah, there's a lot of dialogue in this film.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was intense, but yeah, that symbol was one of the reasons you had to drink.
And so
you see it a lot because it's on grandma's necklace. Yeah, we've now seen it
at Joan's house and Annie's house, above
where
Grandma Lee's body
is,
on the trees outside, on the tree house
too. If you look close enough, I'm sure it's in those doormats.
Yeah. It's so weird too. I mean, obviously Annie knew that her mom made those doormats. Who else is going to make doormats like that, right?
Yeah.
Like, I feel like she should have linked that connection a lot sooner, but she also has a lot on her mind. So anyways, I digress.
And who knows, maybe there could be someone out that, like, yeah.
But
people
they looked,
make
exactly alike as the ones that her mom had. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't
They
know.
looked pretty
But
similar.
I feel you though. There could be someone else who's crocheting like that, or not crocheting, knitting. I don't know what it was.
Embroidered
Macrame,
is
embroidering. Oh, okay.
what she said
Oh, okay.
was the word she used.
But yeah, Charlie and Peter are now at a party. Lots of kids there. It's your basic teenage party. And Peter wants to hang out with this girl. So he's like, "Hey, do you smoke? I got some weed." And he wants to go take her to the bedroom to go smoke weed with her. And Charlie wants to come along because she's only 13. She's younger than him, and she doesn't know anybody there. So she feels out of place. She's scared. She's alone. And so he's like, "Look, there's chocolate cake up there. They're passing stuff out. Like, go get you a piece."
And she's already freaking out because she's like, they're not handing it out to everyone.
Yeah.
And she's like, I don't know anyone here. They're not just going to give me stuff. Like, I'm not even supposed to be here.
Yeah.
Kind of thing. But then he convinces her, like, if you just go stand there, they'll give you a
hand
piece.
you one. Yeah. And he'll go hurry before they run out.
Yeah.
And pretty suckish of Mr. Peter. Because
he's got to have a lot of guilt riding on his shoulders.
Oh, yeah.
Like, knowing that. I mean, he does have a point later on whenever he says, well, what about you? She didn't even want to go to the party, kind of thing. But like
at that point,
if
though,
he'd paid more attention to her at the party, this wouldn't have happened, kind of thing.
Yeah.
And then, I mean, it's not his fault. It was a freak accident. But
there's a lot of like
I
blame, but
imagine
not
that
blame.
You got to have some survivor guilt.
Yeah. Well, also in the sense of like, that being I don't know, they're younger than you, and like you have to kind of then you automatically take on this, like any role. If I were to hang out with anybody younger than me, not even my blood or anybody, you kind of take an automatic role of like, well, leadership, guardianship, like kind of like, I am the older person, so I should have more like experience, wisdom to make sure you don't kill yourself.
Yeah.
Kind of situation. So yeah, but I mean he was thinking with his dick, so I mean
he was. So
what
all
could you do?
Rationality is out
the
window.
door. Yeah. So it kind of sucks for him because immediately you can we're getting to it. So anyways, yeah, he's smoking weed with his friend. They're not even his friends, honestly. He's just smoking weed with kids that he knows from school.
Yeah.
Because he likes her and he thinks she's cute. And then we see Charlie just going ham on some cake, man. Just like while everybody's dancing around her situation in the party, and you can already kind of tell like.
She's kind of pausing a little bit. And
she's like, something's weird. Yeah. Like
a little bit, kind of trying to clear her throat.
And,
and I mean, as they were cutting the cake and passing it out, you could clearly see the nuts all within the cake.
Yeah. It's a big failure on Charlie's part as well. But also, I feel like Charlie, not to her own fault, has a demonic entity inside of her, so just maybe Charlie doesn't get it.
Yeah. And maybe the demonic entity was like, yes,
this is a part of it. Yeah. Honestly, I mean, because it all gives also as well. I mean, the marking on the pole, like, what was that?
Yeah.
Like, how did they know that
there was? I bet you they planted that
deer. That's what it's giving. They like went and drug it out.
Swerve.
Yeah. Like, I don't know. That's given divine intervention. But we have, unfortunately, Charlie eating this cake, and she comes into the bedroom to talk to Peter, and she's like, Peter, like, I can't breathe. Like, well,
my throat feels like it's getting bigger.
It's getting bigger. And that's when he's like freaking out. He's like, oh shit. And he kind of immediately, I think he already knows what happens. So then he like picks her up. He's walking her, taking her to the car, and he's like, yeah, they're driving so fast. And also, why is this party out in the middle of fucking nowhere? But
yeah, for real. I guess it looks like most of that stuff is out in the middle of nowhere.
Well, I was wondering like where, because I don't know if we ever get a mention of where they're.
It was filmed in Utah.
Okay, I'm like, is this the landscape over there? Is this how it is? We're all about 15 miles away from each other.
Yeah.
But her in the car, he's speeding because he's trying to get to the hospital, and he's trying to like calm her down. But unfortunately, she is like dry heaving. She cannot breathe. And I'm sure freaking out because that's not a good, pleasant feeling. And I don't know why she thinks that rolling down the window would be the best option, but she rolls down the window.
I imagine she thought it was going to let more air in to the car / let more air into her lungs.
I can see that.
Like when you're grasping at straws, that would be the only thing you could think of.
You're not being rational.
Yeah.
So she rolls that window down and sticks her head out. and is trying to get fresh air. And unfortunately, at the same time, we have a deer on the road, so he swerves to miss the deer, and she ends up getting decapitated
on the telephone pole. And damn, the sound her head makes
The
when
snap.
it hits that pole, that thud,
Mm-hmm.
and then you just hear like the squelching of
Yeah.
flesh.
Mm-hmm.
It's pretty nasty, and you
can see it.
yeah.
It like happens in the flash of a second, but if you
you
were to put it on like 0.5 second
you
speed.
can watch it happen where her little head just gets plinked right off.
Yeah.
And poor Peter, he freezes.
This is probably one of the heaviest scenes for me in the movie.
Yeah, and he did such a phenomenal job of acting in this moment, because you can see just the emotion passing over his face / the shock. It seemed like he was in genuine shock.
Yeah.
And the tears that were welling up in his eyes and stuff like that too, but them not actually spilling because he's in shock.
Yeah.
And has no clue what just happened, but also at the same time has every clue as to what just happened. And the way that he just pauses and then is like, "Are you okay?" Like, and just kind of briefly says that, and then just is like, "Okay," and puts the car in drive and just drives off. And he like almost looks in the rearview mirror and then brings himself back and doesn't.
Yeah.
And just, yeah, the way he handled this scene was chef's kiss.
Pretty emotional, pretty raw.
Yeah.
This whole film, it's very drama. No, that's not a good way to say it. Like a drama horror movie. But yeah, it's pretty sad, pretty fucked up, because Peter can't really handle the situation and drives home slowly, pulls up, and just goes to his bedroom. And obviously he doesn't fall asleep because he's like, what the fuck? And it's basically the next morning already. And
I love the transition basically that they use on his face of it going from like night to light outside. And they do that a few times where it'll transition from nighttime to daytime.
Yeah.
And there's one shot at the very end that I loved. It was just a shot of the house.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden it was like they turned the lights on outside.
Yeah.
It was just like dink, and then it was daytime. It was the same shot of the house. It was just
it
really
the end in like the third act? Or before that? It wasn't when all the people were out there, was it?
No.
Oh, okay.
No, there were no.
Because then it goes from night to dark. It goes from day to dark. My bad. That's right. Yeah. But yes. We're home and it's the next day, and Annie's gonna go probably run some errands, and she opens up the car door and you just hear her screaming because she finds the body there.
Toni Collette was acting for her life
throughout the whole movie.
Yes. Yeah. But especially in this scene with her sobbing and being like, "Please, I just want to die."
Yeah.
And stuff like. It felt so raw, and I imagine what every parent who unfortunately has had to lose a child is probably exactly how they are feeling and acting in that moment.
Part of their soul has died.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Part of your whole life is gone. And I know it's not the same at all, but like when Kitty died, for me, that was... There was the only thing.
Well, that's your fur baby.
It was good that I was in Vegas when it happened because the only thing that stopped me. This is dark, y'all. But one of the only things that stopped me from just taking all my pills was the fact that I was like, I don't want to have to make them take my body home from Vegas.
Yeah.
So
that'd be a little inconvenient.
Yeah, I was like, that's going to be a major inconvenience for people. Lord. So
well, we're glad you're still here.
Decided not to.
Yeah.
But it was because I always joked, like when people would always ask me, what are you going to do when she dies? And I was like, I'm going to die too. Yeah. So then whenever it happened, I was like, well, damn, will I?
Yeah.
And thankfully I didn't.
No, you're still here. It still hurts, but you're still here.
Yeah.
You live. And now you have two beautiful kitties.
I do. And they're so good. Much.
Yeah.
Sometimes I feel guilty because I'm like, they're not kitty.
Yeah.
But okay. I do love them.
Kitty's I love them so hell, much. Screaming at you. Just kidding. Just kidding.
Kitty.
She's in kitty heaven.
Kitty is in kitty heaven. She was the best cat.
Aww.
She was the best cat.
Shout out.
Except for peeing on things.
We all pee on
and
things.
peeing on my
It's okay.
head. I've had
You've had so many things
lots
pee
of
on
animals
you.
pee on my head.
You must have a proclivity for things peeing on you. Proclivity, that's the word. But yeah,
Oh.
like you said, acting for her life, very much so. A lot of sobbing, a lot of my daughter is dead, I don't want to be alive. We get not a cool shot, but a gnarly shot of Charlie's head with a bunch of ants on it and like her tongue all out.
Yeah, that
'cause
shot.
it's on
I
the
was
side of
like,
the road.
it's like a train wreck where you
Yeah.
like have to watch.
Oh, yeah.
But you also like want to simultaneously shield
But
your eyes.
you also don't like head things. Like you don't
Yeah,
like
that's
heads being
true.
smashed in. You don't like heads like you don't like things happening to the head.
Yeah, that's true.
Um
For me, it was like I just stared at it, but the whole time I wanted to like look away,
yeah.
but I couldn't. I just had to like absorb every detail of
They did the job
her
right.
little head sitting there just mangled.
Mm-hmm.
Eh.
And we get our funeral, which happens. It goes by pretty fast.
Her little blue casket.
Mm-hmm.
So cute.
While her mom's like just crying and sobbing as she's going down. I like the shot of how they were lowering the casket, and then it goes into the earth.
Mm-hmm.
And then we have it transitioning to, I believe we're back in the house, and mom is looking at someone's bed. Is it Peter's? I think it's Peter's. I think she's just looking over him in his sleep or something. I'm not sure where, but I remember at some point, this is where she sees the carving of the Zazas, the Zazas. You know what I'm talking about? Which one?
Yeah.
The Zazas. It was on one of either above his headboard or someone else's headboard. But anyways, yes, because he's in there and then he's going to sleep, trying to go to sleep. And that's whenever we see the red light turn on in the treehouse.
Yeah, the treehouse light turns on. And at first I was like, oh, damn, it's a
some
ghost.
spirit. Yeah, that's
and
what
then,
I thought too. Yeah.
Then it was like next morning you see mom in there. I was like, okay,
Yeah.
JK, it's just mom.
Mom was asleep in the treehouse. She was looking at Charlie's drawings and all that kind of shit. Just doing the typical kind of morning stuff. And then this is when
My
we have
bitch ass wrote that it was karma that that Charlie got decapitated because she decapitated the bird.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
I didn't even think about that,
It happened
honestly.
to her because she did it to another creature.
Oh, I didn't even think about that. Yeah, you're right. Maybe it's full circle.
Yeah.
And then we have
I think it was because it panned in on the drawing of the bird head with the little crown and right there. And I
That's
was
also
like,
foreshadowing for what happens to her head. Yeah.
Exactly.
And so we have
It's like she knew, but didn't know
Yeah.
at the same time.
I feel like that as well. Even when she comes back as well in the body, there's no like, oh my God, no, what have y'all done? It's just like, okay.
Okay. Yeah.
I guess
Very like,
all right now.
all of a sudden she's
This is a new normal.
become
Yeah.
Payman.
And also her brother. So kind of weird.
Kind of weird, yeah. To all of a sudden have a penis.
That's your brother's.
It's like Freaky Friday.
That's your brother's penis.
Your
Not even
brother's
just
penis.
a penis. It's your brother's penis.
Yeah.
Kind of weird.
Oh, what are you supposed to do when you want to jerk off?
That's kind of weird.
Kind of really weird.
I couldn't. Yeah. Anyways.
Can't think about it too much.
Yeah. That's weird. So we are with Peter at school. He's getting high with his friends because he
Under the bleachers.
cannot handle the pressures of the things that he has done. He is going through it.
I know. I almost thought
undoubtedly-
like I'm sure he'll never get high again, and then
Nar.
he was just continuously getting high.
And he is getting so high that he essentially, I'm sure he's having a panic attack is what it is, but he's feeling like he's like, oh my God, I feel like I'm dying. I feel like my throat's closing in, kind of like how his sister was feeling.
He uses the exact words that Charlie used.
Yeah.
I feel like my throat's getting bigger.
And that's whenever, that's going on, and he ends up coming back home late. I'm assuming he just, I don't know what he was doing after school hours, but he came home really late, and he has a hard time getting inside the house. You can tell he's like clenching his fist. He's like, doesn't want to face the emptiness and probably like the looks from his mom and feeling like he's guilty. And then we have mom, Toni Collette, just like in the car watching him in the darkness as she's about to take off and leave.
So creepy and ominous.
Yeah.
Like
she looks like she's about to murder him.
Yeah. About to just like run
hit
the car over him. Yeah.
And so then that's whenever we have her taking off, and she's trying to go to therapy again. But as soon as she pulls up, it's kind of like she's not ready for it. So she decides to back out and leave. But before she can go, who pops up? Joan, not Joan Rivers, R.I.P. Another Joan.
Joan pops up, and
Joan from hell.
asks, literally, Joan pops up and asks Annie to come in with her and is like, why are you leaving? Like, it felt very much like a church group or something. Like if you decide to go to church and then you're like, JK, this isn't for me. And then
I've been there so many times.
Yeah. And then the people are like, hey, just come back in. Like, it felt so much like that. And
what an experience.
Like, yeah.
And you went back in, right?
I feel like I probably did.
I
just
did.
because I
you can't say no.
Can't say no to people.
Yeah. Like I feel rude.
I'm just like, okay, well, now I have to.
Yeah.
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 They
My family's
all
thing
that
was
time.
always making sure to sit in the back pews. So if you need to leave early, you can head out. You can
just
dip out.
Dip out without anyone noticing.
But we also always arrived late, so it never failed. We got the back pews anyways.
Oh, yeah.
We always I feel like we always arrived like 5 minutes into them starting like the whole like singing or whatever they're gonna do. Yeah, the whole hoopla shenanigans. And so that's whenever we have Joan being super super duper nice. And you know what? I'm all about being nice because I'm usually super overly nice to people. But you know what? Nah. If someone is being as nice as Joan is being to Annie right now, they want something. You better be careful. Because she is being too nice and too like open, and then just like starts sharing her story.
My son died.
Literally, like
out of nowhere.
No, don't go. My son died. Like, yeah.
Yeah,
she knows what's affecting Annie, and so she
like,
knows what to pull at to manipulate Annie into feeling like, oh, this is a confidant. This is someone who's just trying to be nice and caring and share their story with me. So Joan ends up giving Annie her number. And it's like, if you need this, just call me, and they end up leaving. Annie leaves, not together, my bad. Annie leaves. And then that's whenever she gets home and, she's trying to sleep, but she can't sleep. And so she wakes up, and I believe this is when she wants to go to the tree house. And then that's whenever Steven's like, no, you need to stay inside. And it's freezing. And she's like, I want to sleep. And he's like, okay, fine. If you get too cold, come back in.
Yeah.
And Peter's in his bed at this point. And I think this is whenever he wakes up and he hears the tongue pop.
Yeah, he hears the tongue click.
Yeah. And he wakes up all freaked out. But yeah, it's I believe it's the next morning or next day. And that's whenever Annie's making something or whatever. She's in her studio, and then she spills over that paint. And she sees Joan's number because it spills a little bit on the piece of paper that had her number. And so I guess that gives her the incentive, like, well, I guess I'll hit up this lady. And so immediately we just go over to her going over to Joan's.
Yep.
Yeah. Which I'm just like, that's very fast. And like, you don't know this woman, but okay.
Yeah, I wouldn't go to her
I would
house.
meet at a public place
for coffee somewhere.
Yeah.
But that's just me. But yeah, she's going to visit Joan, and she gets there, and then just as we spoke about earlier, she sees this welcome mat, and that looks awfully familiar to her, and it correct me if I'm wrong, it just said Joan at this moment, right?
It said Joni.
It did say Joni?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I thought maybe it changed later.
No. It said Joni from the get-go. Yeah.
Joni. It says Joni, and she was like, oh, my mom used to make ones exactly like this, and doesn't put two and two together
at
even
all.
Though, yeah, I mean, it could have just been a weird coincidence, or something.
It was just the design is the exact same.
Yeah,
and it's just in different colors. But yes, a lot of people can embroider, and it could be a very big coincidence, especially because, I mean, she's already at this point, she's already putting a lot of trust and has opened up and has been vulnerable in front of this person. So you from the get-go don't want to start thinking like, oh, or is this doubt like, who are you then? Or what is this? Or there's no way. Like, you know what I mean? Because I would be like, if that was, if this person knew my mom, then they would have already mentioned they know my mom. Like, otherwise, if not, that's weird. Yeah. And I don't want to think that this person that's being nice to me is weird. She's being probably as well like a blind eye at this point, and so she gets in there and she starts to talking with Joan, and Joan is, telling her story a little bit, I believe, right? Or a little bit about, her grandson and her son who allegedly passed away. I don't know if they really actually did or not, or maybe she tried to put payment in one of them. I don't know. And so that's whenever Annie ends up feeling like she can open up, because Joan specifically asked like, how is Peter doing, which I thought was also very weird.
Yeah.
But she's very specific, like, well, and how is Peter doing,
and how is your relationship with Peter?
yeah.
And Annie goes on to explain that it's a little strained because it was so random how she went into the story.
Yeah, about how
like,
she used to sleep a lot.
Yeah, and just basically automatically admits to this rando woman that she almost killed her children.
Yeah.
Like, what the fuck? I would, if I was Joan, I would be like,
that's kind of those things that you don't
me?
repeat.
Yeah,
you know
you don't
what I
say
mean?
out loud.
You just, I mean,
Like the other day, well,
don't remember this is recorded, Caitlin.
that's true. It was
You can
funny.
tell me off air.
It wasn't bad, but it's a real thing that I did that I was like, I've never said this out loud.
Oh, that's what I did one of those the other day to Robert. Were you telling Andrew?
No, I was telling my friend Sarah.
I was telling Robert something, and the way he even was just like, don't ever say that out loud to anyone ever again. And
yeah.
I'm like, okay.
She laughed. She thought it was hilarious. So we'll leave that
Mine
in
was a
secret.
bit dark.
Mine was at, can I just say it?
Say it.
Okay. Mine was at my uncle's funeral.
Yeah.
Or like
Did you pee on his head?
memorial dinner. I did. No. She was singing Hey Now from the Lizzie McGuire movie. And
Who
I
was?
was like, Sarah.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
And she was singing that. And then I was like, at my uncle's funeral thing, I once sang that song.
Why?
Just because I wanted to sing that song, because the movie had just come out and I was obsessed with the song. And so then I was like, can I sing this
was
song?
Was it like in the like during what part, Caitlin?
It was like a dinner.
Okay.
For
like the ones that they have the night before the funeral or after the funeral?
Yeah, I think it was like a memorial dinner thing for him. So
gotcha.
And so then here is my little child ass up here singing, "This is what dreams are made of."
How old we were? 2004, right? Around 2003, that's when that came out.
Yeah, so I was like 8 or 9.
Like, yeah, okay, that makes sense.
10 or something.
14.
Sing,
22.
Yeah. 22 singing, "Hey Now,
this is what
dreams are made of," as my uncle's dead.
That's really funny, though. I mean, it's entertainment. They probably thought you were cute.
Yeah, I mean, I hope so.
Yeah, I mean, and people, I think, especially when it's
who the hell let me get up there?
Kid. I mean,
my uncle was a like musician and stuff too, so they probably.
This is what he would have wanted.
He wanted.
It was a tribute.
A Lizzie McGuire song for him.
It was a tribute.
He probably would have preferred a different song.
Were your extended family and those family, like, were they religious at all? Yes, right? So I feel like that's kind of like, I feel like they kind of probably found the like religious undertext to like, hey now, this is what dreams, like he's in heaven.
This is what dreams are made of. You're with Jesus.
Yeah, I feel like that's literally probably what was taken from it.
Open your eyes.
This is what dreams. Literally, Caitlin, you ate.
It was for Jesus.
Literally.
Lizzie McGuire for Jesus.
It gives Kids Bop. You could have been a Kids Bop kid, Caitlin.
I love it.
And so we have Mom, yes, like we said, just sharing and dumping once again on Miss Joan about how she almost killed her kids by pouring not lighter fluid, but like the paint thinner all over them and almost striking a match.
Stinky.
Yeah,
I can't believe that they didn't wake up from it being poured on them. But B, that they didn't wake up from the sheer smell alone.
Kids be sleeping heavy though.
That's true.
Honestly, kids sleep real fucking heavy. My nieces and nephews.
I probably would not wake up either. I'm a really heavy sleeper.
Or it's like that whole thing, you know, in movies, like, and I guess they used to do this to me when I was a kid too. Kids fall asleep on couches or kids fall asleep anywhere, and they just like and hoist them up and take them to the bedroom. You always see the kid like never fucking budges or anything. I'm like, that's literally how they are.
That's true.
And so we have all of that happening, and this is whenever I believe. I think they're done having their conversation. It's kind of helpful for Annie, and then that's it. Because we don't do the seance shit yet. No.
Nope. That's later.
Yep. Because we're back at home, and this is whenever Mom dad is cooking food and mom is upstairs in her studio and she's making a freaking
diorama
of the accident. And dad walks in and he's like, no. Like, what
how the fuck do you think Peter's gonna feel when he sees that?
Yeah. And I love how
she was
like,
this isn't about him.
Yeah. I'm like, it's everything about him.
Damn,
especially if
you have him in the front seat.
His little figurine is there.
Yeah.
Literally. It's totally related to him. Yeah. Dad is obviously visibly just like, he's upset because one, his wife is going through this whole, drama and a mess. He's also lost his own kid, his daughter. And he's got his son who's like, he's worried about, because obviously he feels like the secondhand guilt that his son is feeling and seeing like the toll it's taking on him. And especially now, like the mom and him now like beefing in a way, in a sense. So yeah, because
it feels like he killed her baby.
There's so much tension and animosity in the room.
Yeah And that leads to the dinner table where shit just hits the fan. And because dad, Peter comments on the food and is like, this is really good, and dad's like, thanks buddy. And then Annie is like, pfft.
She snarks. And then Peter just teenager, come on, Peter has to be like, mom, is there something you want to say, like something you want to get off your mind, like just say it.
Like what's on your mind? At first it seemed kind of genuine, and then he was like, it seems like there's something you want to say, and I was like,
then there was a tone.
Oh damn.
I was like, oh, like the choice of words. And she's like, is there something you want to say? And then I love how I guess that's it, the last straw of what he says. And then she just goes off and it's just basically like, don't you, she says, this is what she says. She's like, why? So that way you could just sneer at me. And he's like, I don't ever sneer at you. And I'm like, boy, you've been sneering at her this entire movie, but okay. And then she goes
like, your
off.
face is like basically in a perma sneer.
Yeah. And she goes off. And I mean, right. Honestly, this is one of the most, like, she was robbed of her Oscar because of the scene, because she delivers it so well. But she basically is, in a nutshell, like, I want to forgive you, I want to love you, but you did something horrible and I want to take this pain from you, but I can't. And like, I can't even look at you. Basically, like, I love you, but I can't even look at you. I can't even deal with what you've done. And like, then she goes off on the big tangent, because it's then kind of not even only directed at him, it's directed at Steven too. It feels like she's directing at everyone. She's like, nobody in this family can take accountability for what they've done. And which is kind of like,
neither can you.
Which even she, and it's funny because she can't even, and she's also not facing the realization that she is blaming him. Like, she is blaming Peter. Especially earlier in the film when she says, I forgot if it was in group or to someone else. It was to Joan when she was like, my daughter was killed. She didn't say it was an accident or my daughter died in an accident. She said my daughter was killed.
Implying that there's a murderer.
Exactly. So there's a lot of underlying like resentment she's already holding towards Peter. Well, I mean, which I get, that's a lot. I couldn't imagine like losing your own baby, but then finding out that your other baby wasn't the basically kind of
the driver's seat.
And was at the hands of how it happened. Loses her shit. Peter and dad are just kind of like, well, dad's like, that's enough. And so she's like, fine, all right. And she leaves the table, and it's just kind of awkward. Everybody's done eating. That's it for the night. So it's the next day already. And so she's going to go shopping to go get some more supplies for her art stuff. And she ends up running into Miss Joni at the
art supply
store.
And Joan's like, oh my
so much.
God.
My whole life is turned around.
It's like I
found the Lord. Wrong Lord.
Yes, very much the wrong Lord. And comes in and is just like, I have to tell you, and tells her that she met this medium who then performed a seance that basically allowed her to speak with her grandson. It conjured the spirit of her grandson. And you can see the whole time on Annie's face, she's just like
skeptical.
Okay.
And even Joni's like, no, I see your reaction. I thought the same thing too. I thought it was crazy too.
But it's not, and it's real. Like, let me just show you, kind of thing. And so she's like, you have to come over. And so she comes over. And apparently
Apparently
Joan's a medium now.
Yeah, because Joan got accredited and got a certificate through this medium. That's what I was thinking too. And then Annie becomes, I love how Annie
she's like, I'm a medium.
When she tells Steven.
Yeah.
Yes.
I was like,
I was dying.
Okay.
I was dying.
But yeah, apparently Joan's a medium now. She's got this candle and a piece of paper that she's in a cup, that she's used. And they basically, it's almost like a planchette of sorts. They lightly place their hands on the cup and it moves and she asks them to move it.
Yeah.
And it does end up moving, and Annie freaks the fuck out. Rightly so. I would be also like, okay. Yeah. No, thank you.
Not here scared for it. Yeah, because I mean, at that point, we watched a lot of shit. You don't know what you're messing with at that point.
Yeah, it could be demons.
Could be anybody.
And
anything.
It was a demon.
It was literally the demon, not even a demon, like the king of demons. But we have her, freaking out because and also, why is Joan's grandson from the 18th century, Louis? I haven't heard nobody named Louis since Fat Louis. From the Princess Brides.
Yeah.
Fat Louis.
I was like, it looked more like Louise.
Yeah, but it was
Louis.
Louis, her grandson she's talking to, and I love how Annie is like, we need to stop, and Joni's like, what?
And she's like, I'm in the middle of a conversation here.
Literally, she's like, she's like, Louis, I'm gonna be right back. Hold up. And so anyways,
don't go anywhere.
Yeah, literally. And it's fucking dead. Anyways, and Annie's like, I gotta get out of here. And Joan's like, you know what? Here, you take this candle, you take this, you take that. Here's this piece of paper. You just do this, and that.
Recite it word for word. Yep. Every syllable.
Make sure your whole family's inside the house. That is very important, which is also weird because why would the whole family need to be inside the house?
Yeah, exactly. Because she needed Peter to be in there.
Mm-hmm. And so she's like, everybody needs to be there. Make sure.
Doesn't she even say make sure Peter, everyone's there?
Yeah. Like specifically calls his name.
Yeah.
And she's like, you have to make sure you do it while everyone's there, and basically just sends her off on her own. And from that point on, we're just like, okay, there's something suspicious here. And I love how even Annie was like, I love how freaked out she was, but was just like, okay, yeah, I am gonna take this stuff. I'll do this. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Without words, but I'm like, even I would have been like, no, like keep your satanic piece of paper, like.
Yeah.
But yeah, so she takes it and she leaves, and as she's leaving, which is also even more so weird, is Joan yells at her and she's like, you didn't kill her or something like that.
Yeah. You didn't. Yeah. She says you didn't kill her.
She's still alive. She isn't gone.
She isn't gone yet.
Yeah. And at that point you'd be like, what the fuck?
What the fuck?
What the fuck is Joan into? Yeah. But anyways, we have her going home. And this is whenever it's nighttime, and we have this awful scene of her. Essentially, it's a nightmare scene.
And we hear the tongue click from the back seat.
Yeah.
So she's hearing it now too.
That's true.
Which freaked her the fuck out.
Yeah.
But anyways, then we are back in her nightmare.
We're in her nightmare, and she is essentially she wakes up in Peter's, or she's trying to wake up Peter, or she wakes up Peter and she's telling him, I am so sorry. I for all the things I said. Basically, first trying to apologize, right?
Yeah, because she wakes up, she finds ants and ants on her pillow in the wall.
Yes.
And then she walks into Peter's room.
And he's got ants all over him.
Ants all in his mouth and stuff like that. And then she's like standing there just like, what the fuck? And Peter wakes up and is like, what the hell are you doing?
Yeah.
Yeah. And so then she
jumps on him, and that's when she's like, I'm so sorry for what I said. And then that's whenever I think she pulls away, right? Because then he's like, oh no, I'm getting mixed up. She jumps on him later on.
Hasn't quite happened yet.
This is whenever she's like, I didn't even want you.
I never wanted to be your mother.
Yeah.
And he was like, why did you have me? And she's like, I tried to not.
Yeah.
And he was like, what? And she was like, I tried to have a miscarriage every way that I could, but I couldn't. Yeah. It still didn't work. You still came out. And he was just like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
And then the next scene, it's basically like the exact next scene.
Yeah, because that's why I was getting it mixed up, because she wakes up from this nightmare, and then that's when she goes to Peter, and she does the little seance in the bathroom, and then she goes to wake up Peter, and she's like, I'm so
so
sorry, but I
sorry."
figured it out, and like I something is happening, and it's
And
up to
he's like,
yeah,
"What? It's okay. It's okay." Like,
yeah,
I mean, she's hugging him and
yeah.
stuff,
And
and
she's looking, she's getting,
which was
she's
it was so
supposed to do the
weird how
seance.
close she was to his face to wake him up. I was
Oh
like,
yeah, yeah,
if somebody ever woke me up that close to me, I would have punched them
yeah.
on just like basic instinct. I would have been like, get the fuck out of my face.
Stabs them in the gut, shoots
Yeah.
them with a rifle.
Yeah.
Automatically. No, I'm just kidding. But yeah, I feel you. She was up in his grill. And that's whenever she wakes up Steven. They go downstairs and they start to perform a seance reluctantly. Because Steven is just like, this is some crock of shit. What the fuck?
This
And then
some bullshit.
Peter's just like freaked out. Peter's scared, honestly, at this point.
Yeah, Peter's
Terrified.
crying
Yeah.
and stuff. He's
for like a 16-year-old, like he is genuinely terrified of what's
Yeah.
happening at the moment. And and everything, and then it starts to become a seance, and she's like, I'm a medium, and then like, we have this moment where she's trying to talk to whatever spirit it is, and then out of nowhere, we have that like the glass or something from the like whiskey cabinet thing breaking and shattering.
shatters. Yeah.
And they're like, what? And then the flame goes off, and then Annie becomes possessed for a quick second.
Mm-hmm.
And was it Charlie, or was it something else?
I think
I feel like it was
Charlie.
because she was like, what's going on? Like,
Yeah,
Mom, Dad, make it stop.
Mom, I'm so scared.
Yeah.
Peter, I'm so scared.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
what's going on? Why are you all standing? Like, why are you all scaring me?
Yeah,
Kind of thing.
yeah.
I think it really was Charlie who came
Mhm.
through.
And then I think this is another. I was at a certain point after that. I don't know if it's someone else's bed, but we get that other scratching on the wall. Liftoch Pandemonium. That's how I'm pronouncing it. That's how it was. It looked like Liftoch Pandemonium. But we have that's very quick. It's like for 2 seconds, and then we have Peter at school the next day. And this is when he is in the classroom and he
It's a
sees
pretty disturbing scene.
Yeah, he sees a blue light.
I don't like any time when it's always scary to me when a reflection does something different than what the actual person's doing.
because
It always creeps me out.
in the reflection of like the chemistry whatever
Like little bookcase.
yeah, and his reflection is smiling at him while he's like not
Smiling.
yeah. It looks like he's looking back at him, and he's obviously like, whoa, what's that about? And at the same time, I believe that's whenever he is has he gone outside yet at this point?
Yeah, so he's sitting there, and as he's sitting there looking at his reflection, he hears the tongue click,
Yeah.
and he freaks out.
And that's when he's
and
like, oh, I
he-
gotta go to the bathroom.
Yeah, asks to go to the bathroom,
Yeah.
and then
Dad calls Annie, is like, our son just called us freaking out, like, because at school because he thinks some spirit is after him.
mhm.
I wonder why. Like, this is all your fault, basically.
Yeah,
And he's like saying, like, you may be my wife, but I have a son to protect, which is kind of like fighting words.
yeah,
Because she's like, he's my son too. But yeah, and she's so pissed off. Especially because she also, this whole time we've been dealing with this underlying, like, there's a deadline of her trying to get this like a little miniatures done for a showcase she has for art installation, and we get a phone call from like the art people. It's going on the intercom, and then she like just has a breaking point and she starts breaking all of her stuff. Has a little meltdown, and then everybody gets home, and that's whenever we see Dad gets in the room and he's like, what have you done? And she's just like, I just couldn't look at it anymore. And I think at this point for him was one of the moments as well where he's just like,
this
I'm-
bitch lost it.
I'm not recognizing my wife anymore, you know?
Yeah.
And this is as well. We transition then to, I think Annie's just walking through the house, and that's when she starts to see and hear things,
And we also got a close up of Peter figure lying in his bed with no head,
oh yeah, that's right,
which
Dad
I thought
sees
was,
it.
Yeah, and it's like, that's disturbing.
Yeah.
Especially because he hasn't had that dream yet, right?
No, he hasn't.
He hasn't.
Uh-uh.
But yeah, Mom hears the sounds going, and she finds the notebook just scribbling away
Yeah.
little pictures of people,
Of Charlie.
of Peter drawing.
Of Peter. Yes. Sorry.
Charlie drawing pictures of
What
Peter.
we think is Charlie. Anyways, but yes, of Peter. And then that's whenever we have Annie then freaking out a little bit, and she stops it and she takes it and she tries to throw it into the fire pit. Fire, it's not a fire pit, chimney. And whenever it catches on fire, fireplace, she starts catching on fire. So she kind of gets the idea of like, okay, her and this book are now connected. So if she were to get rid of it with fire and flame, she would burn up as well.
Yep.
So we have her. Then I think the next day, she definitely seems like, what the fuck has Joan gotten me into? So she goes over to Joan's.
And Peter saw Charlie in his room.
Oh, that's right.
Peter was lying in bed, and he looked up and he saw Charlie, and because he heard the tongue click again, looks around the room, wakes him up, sees Charlie in the corner, and then Charlie's head he's like, Charlie, what are you doing? And then Charlie's head just rolls off, and it turns into a basketball or something.
And the dog is like,
and the door slams, and then that's when the mom tries to burn the notebook and stuff. But I like this cool upside down transition shot too that we get as mom goes to visit Joan.
And then she is, going to her door, knocking on it, but Joan is either not answering or not there. I have a feeling she's just not answering.
Yeah, because she was busy setting up a ritual with Peter in the middle.
Yep, as we see
ritualistic scene with that triangle.
From our point of view, she's definitely doing some dark-seated things, and
it's got little figurines bowing to this, I don't know, body of someone who we later figure out is supposed to be Payman with.
Well, it was Charlie's thing was there.
Yeah.
With the bird head, right? Yeah, and all that stuff. And we definitely know now, like, Joan is in on it, as Joan if we did not have an inkling of before. And that's whenever we're with Peter back at school. That's right. And he's sitting at the picnic table outside, and we hear someone calling for him, and it's fucking Joan. And she's screaming from the other side of the road, and she's saying, Xantony, Dagdani, Aparagon, Peter, I expel you. And she's basically, I guess, kind of performing another part to the ritual to bring, I guess, all of this to fruition. And so Peter ends up while that's happening, Annie's back at her house because she saw the doormat and was like, no, I've seen this before, and goes back to her place. And that's whenever she goes through Grandma Lee's shit, and she finds all the other doormats that look just like the one that was at
she finds Annie's doormat, and then Charlie's, which said Charles, which
she wanted
her to be a boy. Yeah. And she ends up going through the photo album, finds pictures of Joan with her mom, and is like, holy shit, Joan's in on this. And then goes through a book and finds writings about Payman and how he needs to possess a male body and stuff like that. And how, he's the king, one of the kings of hell kind of thing. And
the 8th king of hell.
Yeah. And basically is like kind of putting everything together and is like, oh shit, I fucked up.
Yeah.
Like, I've invited something and it's now after my son. And then does she hear something from the attic, or does she just like go, I'm going to go into the attic?
I think she just decides that she's going to go in there for some reason. I don't remember why, or if it was the blue light or maybe something, but she decides to go into the attic for some reason. And that's whenever she goes up there. And that's at the same time we have, is it Peter? Peter is at the school, and that's whenever he sees the blue light in the hallway, right?
Yeah.
And then it goes to that door, and then there's like someone in the door, like beckoning him to come towards it. And then we have Annie going upstairs to the attic, and that's whenever she fucking, like, all these flies that aren't flies but are flies, I guess. I was like, what are all these black smudges like flying around in the room?
Yeah.
But she goes upstairs and it smells really bad because there's a fucking body up here. And also, we did get a mention earlier from Steven, the dad, at one point whenever they come back into the house, and he's like, gosh, that smell. He's like, what is that smell? Yeah. So we go up there, and there's a body in here, and it's grandma's, and there's some ritual shit going on, and she's missing her head, and she's
I thought it was Charlie's at first because it was missing the head. And then I was like, oh no, it's grandma's.
Yeah.
But yeah, missing the head. We see that symbol is carved or painted in blood above her on the ceiling.
Yeah. Kind of looks like this.
Yeah, it does. And yeah, she basically finds her mom and freaks out. And whenever Steven gets home, she's like, go up there and see, like, something's going on. And he's
very
like,
skeptical.
okay, yeah, your mom's body's up there. And then you hear him scream, and he's like, shit, your mom's body is up there.
Yeah.
Like, what the fuck?
Yeah. And then, he comes down and she's going off on this tangent and showing him, the little book of where the drawings were getting drawn by quote unquote Charlie. And, she sounds hysterical and she sounds like she's lost it. And he seems that she thinks that she's lost it.
Yeah. And they came home because Peter was basically convulsing in class and being controlled like a little puppet.
Oh, yeah.
Or something.
He has that freak out at school.
And slams his face on the desk 2 times, breaking his nose. Mm-hmm. Or at least fucking it up.
Pretty gnarly.
Yeah. And that's why he came home.
That's right.
And she was like telling him all about this. And he's like, I've got way too much on my fucking plate.
Yeah.
Right now.
He's like, this is a lot.
Yeah. Son is busting his face at school. There's a dead body in the attic.
Mom's having a breakdown.
Yeah. And
Mom's talking about spirits and demons.
And he's like, you're the one who desecrated the grave. Yeah. All those times you said you were going to the movies, you were actually digging up your mom's grave.
Yeah.
And that's where that little white lie came back to bite her in the ass.
Yeah. And then even she's like, look, I know y'all don't trust me, but you gotta believe me.
Yeah.
Yeah. She's like, just hear me out. And I mean, he follows along with her for a while, and she goes all the way downstairs. This is what she's explaining to him. Sorry, that like she wants to burn the book, but essentially, when she does, like she'll turn into flames, and so like she wants him to do it because she feels scared and she can't do it. So she's basically like, I'm gonna sacrifice myself, but you have to do it. Like I can't do it on my own hands.
Yeah.
And he's like, kind of at the edge of about to do it, but then he's like, you know what, no, I'm not going to do this because this is not healthy for you. This is not going to help you. I thought playing along with this would like be helpful, but it's not.
Yeah.
And you're kind of crazy right now.
I can't do this with you anymore. That's what he says.
Yeah. And at this point he's like, no, I'm not going to burn this. So she takes it from him and she throws it into the fire. And I tell you, when like I almost laugh because
my husband went up
her
in flames.
shock. Yeah. He ends up going up in flames, not her. Which
so
also,
fast.
what's the science behind it? Because she was caught on flame earlier. So, like...
And she put it into the fire. Because then I was like, well, maybe it's because she put it into the fire.
And I was thinking whoever puts it into the flame is the one who catches on fire. But then not, because she's the... Yeah, I don't know. I guess he was just meant to die.
Yeah, he was in the way.
He was.
He was questioning things too much, and they needed him to die.
Yeah.
Which
he does. He burns up like a little crisp.
Yep. Yeah. And then basically
she gets possessed, right?
Yeah, she gets possessed. We then have Peter waking up in his room and, looking at the treehouse again, the lights on.
Yeah.
And we have Mom crawling on the wall behind Peter, which was so creepy.
Yeah,
she's just like
in the corner at first. And then as he's looking behind him, she goes away. And almost like she's floating. And then
it did look like she was kind of swimming through the air.
Yeah. And so then that's whenever he ends up going through the house, he kind of comes downstairs. He's already freaking out because he's like, something seems a little bit off. And we have him coming into the living room where he finds his dad's dead body burnt up. And as he's there, we see someone behind him in the doorway, and then he turns around because he hears them, and there's just that weird, creepy, smiley guy, naked
man,
who was at the funeral
there.
earlier.
Yeah, with the same smile.
And then
so creepy.
We can see freaking Annie up in the corner of the living room. She loves her a good corner, but what's so scary is that like he like hears her behind him and he looks behind him, but then she's not there, and then all of a sudden she's just in front of him and just charging at him. Yeah,
terrifying.
So running through the house, he ends up being able to get upstairs all the way to the attic, which she can't get through. But then she's like banging her head on it,
which is so creepy because she's like flat on the ceiling, just banging her head on it, and it's like, oh, this is terrifying. And then basically once the banging stops, Peter starts looking around, and he goes to investigate in the corner and sees where there once was a body is now a picture of him, and his eyes are like gouged out basically.
Yeah.
And which all those pictures of Peter and stuff that Annie showed Stephen earlier, the drawings, all of his eyes were crossed out.
Yeah.
And stuff. And so then we get probably one of the other most disturbing scenes that sticks with me the most in this film, of Annie
beheading herself
up in the corner. Yep. Just like flossing away at her neck.
Yeah.
With, I'm guessing, some like fishing line or something. Mm-hmm. And she's just up there in the corner, and she's just
back and forth. Yeah.
Back and forth, just sawing off her head. Yeah. And Peter's just watching in horror.
And he just,
as
he's watching her,
what the fuck else can you do?
Finally hears the other fucking people that were in the room with him.
There's like 3 naked people in the corner, like sheepishly, just kind of like,
at him.
Hi.
Yeah. And then he's like, what the fuck? And he ends up jumping out the window.
Yeah.
And falling all the way down. And that's whenever we can hear as he's outside, and we see the camera on him, like Mom's head finally getting cut off and plopping on the floor.
Yeah, you hear the thud.
Yeah. And her body comes out of the window floating by. Doo-doo-doo. And then we just see the blue light leave from, I guess, her body and come into Peter's. And Peter ends up coming to, waking up, kind of standing up, and we automatically get that noise, little tongue pop, tongue click. And Peter follows Mom's body. I think it's the
same blue light that's been floating around the whole time.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I don't know, did it come out of the mom's body?
Well, I don't know.
Okay. I think it was just Charlie's spirit that then decided, and / Payman, that came into him. And then we saw the mom floating up into her headless body, floating up just so seamlessly into the treehouse. It's honestly kind of satisfying to watch the way she just goes
just up to
right up.
And Peter / Payman / Charlie follows, and we go into the treehouse, and that's whenever we see that there's a bunch of, also the score and the music here is just so good,
so serene,
so like
it honestly reminds me, like, it feels like Midsummer took a lot of music from I feel like the same music played in Midsummer a few times.
I can see that.
Did the same
I don't know, I was
composer
I'll look it up,
because I know it's both Ari Aster, but
and so
I wonder if he used the same composer.
We have you know, I'm just gonna, for Peter, for movie's sake, Peter is up there and is looking around, and we see that we have all these naked people like in a worshiping bow down pose. And
he passed a bunch of naked people on his way up there too. They were just standing there in the woods kind of. And but they're all praying to this form with Charlie's head on it. They're all in this like bowed position on their knees, like happy baby kind. Or wait, no, that's a different pose in yoga. That's when you hold your feet on your back. Child's pose is what they're basically in. And they're all bowed to this like figurine that has Charlie's decayed head on it. And then it makes you wonder, like, I wonder how quickly they put that there, or if like every night the mom was like actually, unbeknownst to her, like if she was possessed and going up there and like building.
She could see, that's what I was wondering too, because I was like, were people breaking into their house, or was this like, because she also had the whole sleepwalking. Like, what if it wasn't sleepwalking? What if this whole time she was being controlled and manipulated
and possessed
by her mom or someone else?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So and I just looked it up. No, not the same composer. Different person did the music for Midsummer. But just a whole bunch of hoopla up here. A whole bunch of what is it called? Spiritual,
ritualistic, scary stuff
cultish
happening.
Behavior. Yeah, because then we have Joan, you know, of course, out of everybody, you know, coming up to Peter and being like, "You are Payman. You are."
It's all right now, Charlie.
Yeah.
You are the 8th king of hell. One of the 8 kings of hell.
we corrected your female form and you now have this boy form, and
Healthy male form. Yeah.
whatever you want, we want, and bring
Bend
us
other people's
prosperity.
will to
Thy
us
will, our
as
will.
we have bent our will to you,
Mhm.
kind of thing. So
Yeah.
they just want power.
They just want power, money, and riches, and all that. 'Cause
Yep.
basically, when I looked up Paimon as being whatever. Yes, one of the 8 kings of hell. He is one of the fallen angels with Lucifer. He is basically one of Lucifer's most obedient, like noble, whatever, right hand wingmans. Is like the god, not the god, the king of like mischief or something like that.
Yeah,
And
he is
basically, he rewards and has a bunch of knowledge of like how to get riches and all this other stuff. And if you conjure him or summon
So
him,
he's essentially Loki.
basically,
in Norse mythology.
yeah, you can absorb and get rich, basically. Because even in her note to her mom, she was like, all of this will pale to this, all of our sacrifice will pale to what we receive, it'll be worth it. So yeah.
Too bad they're all fucking
I
dead.
know, that's why I was like, what does it even matter? Like, I don't know, but yeah.
Everyone had to die for it. And
Yeah.
then basically everyone just yells hell payman.
Payman, we'll go with payman.
And then it pans out on the treehouse like one of her miniatures, and it almost seems like we started from a real scene to end back up in a miniature. And I wonder if she like actually created that scene too, like with the miniature, and again, all unbeknownst to her,
maybe
just in a possessed state.
Yeah.
I don't know.
A lot
a
of
good
stuff
movie.
there.
And
Yeah.
it ends so well. It
Mhm.
ends just like a complete cluster fuck.
And that's
And
it.
you're just like, what the
That's
the
it.
hell?
No happy ending here.
No happy ending. Everyone's dead. Well,
And-
Charlie's back alive in Peter's body.
Yeah, it's kind of weird. So then where's
Peter's
Peter?
dead.
Is he dead?
Maybe he's in the sunken place.
Maybe. He's like in hell somewhere, some cage. He's
Yeah.
in the further.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's in all these different movies. He's in Get Out. He's in.
It's all in the same MCU. But yes, and then that would be the end of Hereditary.
2018.
Did you
directed
have any
by Ari Aster.
have any fun facts for us?
I do.
Fun fact me up.
Toni Collette had told her agent that she didn't want to do any more heavy, dark films and only wanted to do comedies, but she loved Hereditary's script so much that she couldn't turn it down, which is like, you didn't want to do any more heavy, dark films, and yet you chose to do
Like
the heaviest
Yeah.
dark film.
She's made for it though.
Yeah, she was. She did such a phenomenal job.
Mhm.
Ari Aster requested that Alex Wolff and Millie Shapiro go out to eat in character a few times, and they would sit there for up to 3 hours in silence while Millie wouldn't speak, and Alex would try to get her to talk. Ari Aster liked Utah for the film because he thought its mountains are beautiful and breathtaking, but also menacing and ominous. And Toni Collette has called Ari Aster the most prepared director she's ever worked with. She praised him for practically having a full movie already shot and edited in his head 2 years before they started filming.
How does one even do that?
Yeah,
Like,
just having it all so planned out. I don't know.
like how do you? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
I see that though. Good for him.
And then director cameo, Ari Aster at around an hour and 23 minutes. The voice on the phone calling Annie about her exhibit date at the Archer Gallery was Ari Aster.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, so we got him in the film with his voice there, which is pretty cool. But yeah, how many boos would you give this film?
I would give Hereditary 5 boos.
5 boos.
5 boos. It gets a 5 boos for me.
It also gets a 5 boos from me. I would give this movie 10 boos if I could.
It's pretty. I mean, I don't even know if I need to say that much about it, because if you watch it, and I feel like it's definitely gained, and it's literally came out. It's what, 5 years? It came out 2018.
Jesus Christ, that was yesterday, Josh.
I know, but I'm just saying, like, and that's what I'm saying. In such little time, and just that was yesterday. Like, so many people like this movie. So many people, like, it's been referenced in other horror movies already because it's like, quote unquote elevated horror. I don't even want to say that it's necessarily elevated, because you don't even have to think that hard to understand the story or the movie or the motives of the
No,
stuff.
they really spell it out for
They really
you.
do. And like from the get-go, and even the like no nuts and like like it's all very obvious. Like
Yeah.
so even in rewatching this, I was like, man, the other times that I'd watch this, I was either like super high, or like I think the other time I was drinking. So we had
I'd be
alcohol.
scared to watch it while
So
I'm high.
it just, I was paying attention more. Oh my God. And it looks so cute. And so there is a lot of moments where I'm just like, I don't know why I thought the film was even more cerebral than it was, because it's really not. Like, it's just really heavy in drama and family and like, you know, triggering in that sense, but it's not necessarily cerebral. So I don't know. It's really good. It really makes and takes you know, real life things like family, tumultuous relationships, and like the trauma and fear of like just having to deal with those things, and then adding another layer of like, well, now we're gonna put cult and ritual, and like your mom that you thought was this normal person your whole life, even though, you know, whatever relationship you had is really a sadistic cultist leader, because she was queenly. Like,
Yeah.
she was the freaking leader of the whole troop. So I don't know, dude. I wonder, like, I want a prequel, you know, like I want like even more, like I want a limited series 6-episode like prequel of like mom's life and how she got into it, or like maybe she was born into it. Maybe like this has been going on for ages, and they've been trying to bring Paimon all this time, you know. So in terms of like music, the score, the acting, I think the acting, obviously everybody I feel like did a really great job. Like, and everybody knew what they needed to bring to the table. Like even the dad, who had like a limited role and I felt like wasn't necessarily like a major character, like I felt what the dad was feeling. Like that felt like I felt sorry for that dad, because I was like, dude, you married into the wrong fucking family.
Yeah, you got a bunch of crazies.
Literally. And so it's just it's really good. It's got a good story. It's, for being 2 hours and something long, like 7 minutes, over 2 hours.
2 hour and 7 minutes. That's what I was telling Mike. I was telling Mike that it was so easy to sit down and watch this film, and it did not feel like 2 hours had passed by the time.
Usually like, my ADHD, by like the hour and 20 minute, I'm like itching to do something else, or like, oh, okay. And I was still like
engaged. And I also got the entire like thinking back on this film, I got it all out of order. Like I forgot how quickly in the film the beheading happens.
Oh yeah, I also, same for me, when I was like, oh,
like I thought she went to Joan's house way before. Like I thought her going to Joan's house was at the beginning of the film,
and I thought, oh, and her finding, I kept waiting for the moment when she was gonna go back to Joan's house and like be like, and then going through grandma's stuff and find out about Joan. I thought for some reason that was also a lot earlier in the film.
Yeah.
And then it ended up being down here.
Like right at the last second.
Yeah. Same.
It was odd how that happened. Yeah. But yeah, basically everything that you said about the film, I agree with. I think it's just beautifully shot. The acting was just out of this world. Toni Collette really did deserve an Oscar.
Yeah.
Because she was acting for her life. And I mean, the soundtrack, everything about it was just beautiful. It's a phenomenal film, and if you haven't watched it, you're doing a great disservice to yourself. You really need to you need to go watch this.
Show everybody.
Yeah. Tell everyone, and just please go watch it. But also don't watch it if you are in a bad place, like we said earlier, because
it's a little heavy.
It's a little heavy.
And we have our listener requests review, Mr. Robert Jackson. Hereditary is a modern classic that constantly fires on all cylinders, from casting to direction, cinematography, and the insane score. Colin Stetson is a visionary. The movie flies at a breakneck pace and doesn't let up. It delivers some of the most shocking moments in modern film history, Charlie's beheading, but never feels gimmicky. 5 boos out of 5.
Yeah.
So all around, we got 5 boos for this movie. And if y'all want to let us know what y'all thought about it, please let us know so. And if y'all have any other requests, please let us know, because we're always taking requests. We're always happy to watch films that maybe we haven't heard of or haven't watched, or both and for this one that we had already seen, it was really nice to watch it anyways, because it's a good movie.
Yeah. And whenever we went to go watch it, Andrew was like, y'all haven't covered this yet?
Yeah.
And I was like, I know, we really haven't. It does seem like a film we would have covered already, but I think we were kind of saving it for a special time.
Yeah.
Because it is such a good film. And what better time to bring it out than spooky season?
Season.
Hey, you can play the drinking game. Just please don't do it with shots because you'll die.
Do it with something to sip on. A beer.
Something to sip on, a beer that's not
wine, maybe.
Too high in ABV.
Yeah.
Maybe like champagne or something. Something light that you can drink. And then remember, you need to drink every time you see the family crest. Anytime you hear the word mother, daughter, or sister mentioned, any part of the matriarch mentioned, basically. And then
a tongue click.
Anytime there's a tongue click. Yeah. Damn, that's so many times.
Yeah.
Ugh.
That's at least 10 already right there with the tongue clicks.
So there you go. That's a fun drinking game you can play this Halloween with your friends as you watch a good movie.
Party.
And then you'll seem really smart too because you chose a not kitschy. You chose some elevated horror to watch at your
Or you're going to make everybody cry at the party.
Good.
Trigger everybody.
Everyone's like,
Everybody's drinking. No, this is going to make everybody drink even more to forget the pain. But yes, once again, thank you guys for listening. We are in the lovely Rogue Media Network studio.
That's right. They take great care of us. And you can listen to us and all the other amazing podcasts on this network all in one central place. And that is
RogueMediaNetwork.com.
And you can also listen to us on the biggest podcasting platforms, wherever you get your podcasts, but the biggest two being
Spotify
and also Apple. But wherever you do listen, don't forget to
rate, review, like, and subscribe.
That's right, because that's the only way we can get ahead in this world. And then if you want to tell people about us for spooky season, let them know about us and figure out which horror films they need to watch for Halloween. Then you can go through our entire gigantic catalog of films that we've covered, over 100+ films of all that would be fantastic for spooky season. I know. Yeah. We've passed our 2-year mark. Our 2-year anniversary was the other day.
It was. I saw it in our memories, and I was like, "Aw."
Yeah. Happy 2-year anniversary to us.
Happy 2 years.
So, congrats.
A lot longer. But yes, and was there anything else we need to mention?
You can reach out to us and let us know your thoughts on Hereditary, or give us any of those suggestions of films that you want us to cover, all in our one central social media platform, which is
at Boobays Podcast, and that's at BOOBAES, because we're your Boobays, not your Boobabes.
That's right, and that's on Instagram.
Yes, we make it so easy for you. Only one social media network. You don't have to go and check all those other ones. We only have one.
We only have one.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you'll sometimes get content on it.
Yeah,
but we will always listen to what you have to say.
Yes,
we're good at responding now.
Yeah. To
people. But yeah, we typically release 2 episodes. We did have to release a
rerun this week
because we are a little underprepared for spooky season. Life has been hitting us hard, and so we're going to try our best to do 2 episodes a week. But if something happens and we're not able to,
don't hold it against us, you guys.
Don't hold it against us.
But we're here, and we're going to give you, even if it's just one episode, a really good episode, really good content, really good quality. And yeah, it's going to be fun regardless. And we thank y'all for joining us for the ride.
Yes. Well, until next time, you guys.
Bye, bays.
Bye, bays.
This has been a Rogue Media Network production.